Funny seeing you here. We're back at our favorite place, Canal State Forest Archery Range, and things not to do 6 days before opening day of deer season in West Virginia is more arrow testing. As everybody knows, I like tinkering. Necessarily by now I would have my entire setup already dialed in, but I was thinking the other day and I was like, well, we build our own stuff, but the average person isn't going to do that. So what do we do? How do we figure out if necessarily a custom built RIP TKO is better than something you can buy off the shelf at like Bass Pro? So this is what we did. I have 4 arrows here. 3 of them have been completely custom built from the ground up. We fleshed them ourselves, helicore ourselves, glued the vanes, inserts, everything. And then I went to our local Bass Pro and picked up off the shelf pretty decent arrow. This is the VAP. This is the Extreme Velocity. This is something I would necessarily see an average hunter go there for a decent price, pick up and go hunting with. And so we're going to see. We're going to see if from the average yardage of an average whitetail hunter, if it makes a difference. If you should spend the extra money and do everything yourself, have an arrow saw, get them cut, get a certain helical put on them, or if you're fine going to Cabela's or a Bass Pro and putting some lighted knocks on and going out and having fun. So from right to left, I'll go over what we have. This is the VAP. This is what I got from Bass Pro. It is coming in at 360 grains. That's with a lighted knock. That's with the insert it comes with and a 100 grain field point. This was the lightest arrow that I have built, or how I bought. I have not shot these yet, so I'm excited to see how these perform. Next in the line is the only 4mm arrow that we have in today's lineup. However, it's the Altra. John has shot these, I have shot these. We know well they'll go through a 2x4 and be just fine. Super durable. They are a little bit more on the pricey side. Now this does have Altra's complete half-out system, or a full-out outsert system. These come in at 430 grains. You really can't necessarily go wrong with these. With these, one of the big variables between this and everything else is it doesn't necessarily have a spine. So you can kind of fletch these however you want. You don't have to have a certain vein up to have that spine alignment. Very cool technology. Levi Morgan stands behind these. I like them a lot. I think the one thing that really tripped me up about these necessarily is I could never get my bow, my Mathews, to tune to these very well, which is why I kind of went away from them. However, still a fantastic arrow. John's had no issues. He shot well with them. I just couldn't get my bow to tune with them. Next up would be the Easton 5.0. Up to this point, this was the lightest arrow before I got the VAP. These arrows are fantastic. A little bit kind of Ferrari, not F-150. So this would be like a Super Duty, not an F-150, and this would be like a Ferrari. So if I shoot this, I miss this, I can almost guarantee I'm not going to get this back. However, fantastic arrow, super accurate, super light, super fast. Absolutely love the Eastons. And then final, the one that I've been shooting the most, the one that I've enjoyed, would be my RIP TKO. These come spine aligned from factory. They give you a little arrow to where you put your cock vane on there going forward. This has their 50 grain half out system or outsert, 100 grain field tip. Now all of these are running different variations of vanes. These are running the 23 AAE hybrids. These are running the Air Razors from AAE. These are running the Victory vanes that come on them. Have not touched those. And these are running the AAE Max. We all know that these are not necessarily going to fly the same. But from our standpoint, we're just going to kind of see what happens. Like, does it matter? One thing to note, the 3 that we have custom built, the ones that we built ourselves with our own fletching jigs, have a left helical. They all have a left helical because our bows naturally shoot with a left helical. The ones from Bass Pro, the ones you buy typically, are going to have a right helical. Does that matter? To the average consumer, probably not. But it is something to note that when you buy arrows that come pre-fletched, usually they're going to come with the right helical. Ours all come with the left because that's what we have our bone, that's what our strings shoot them out as, and they turn left. We've done bare shaft tuning with them, and that's what we see. But let's go ahead. We have a sound recorder down there at 20, 30, and 40. We'll take shots at 20, take shots at 30, take shots at 40. We'll see which ones sound different. We'll get a decibel reading, and we'll see if it matters. See y'all on the range. Alright, up first is going to be the VAP. We'll see how this one flies. I have not shot these yet. They all have lighter knocks on them. So I'm going to estimate where I should aim on our target, and we'll see what happens. I will say that one flying did sound the loudest, just normal ear, but we'll see. This is going to be the Altra. Then we got the tried and true Easton 5.0. And then my favorite currently, the RIP TKO. Recording. So obviously, since that's when my bow is tuned at, the RIP TKO hit almost exactly where I was aiming. Everything else hit a little bit lower with the VAP. I was kind of just guesstimating on where to aim since it is so much lighter. Flight characteristics. Obviously the RIP, this one of those tuned one, shot fantastic. The Easton shot very well. Coming out of the bow, the VAP was the loudest. Just ear, I think John would agree with that. As soon as you heard that kind of a zing of an arrow. The Altra was probably the quietest. Didn't hear anything from it, which is surprising because the air razor vein on the Easton is supposed to be AAE's quietest vein. It's supposed to have a little bit stiffness. However, the decibels ranged from the lowest being 51 decibels, which would be the Altra, to the highest being 61 decibels, which would be the Victory. So about a 10 decibel difference, which if you saw the graph from Yates in the backcountry he did with Easton on vein configurations, that about doubles what the white-tailed deer hears. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. So let's go back to 30. We'll see where we hit. Alright, so we're back at 30. All of these have been chronoed at the beginning of the video. I'll have John insert the chrono videos. All of these speeds.
I'll just put the chrono speeds on the screen.
Okay,
yeah,
chrono speeds on the screen. Just so that way y'all can see them. So now we're at 30. Now we're getting a little bit about the average whitetail hunting scenario. So we're going to see how they fly. Now flight characteristics to me matter a little bit more. Once you get out to 30-40 yards, that's when they start to matter a little bit more for me. Still the loudest. The VAP is still the loudest. Hands down. Now we go on to...
Looks like it's pushing in the same area though.
It is. It's still staying accurate.
Looks like it's just below the circle.
Now we're on to the Ultra.
Which, just to be noted, this is the only 4mm arrow, so it is obviously going to be always lower.
Yep.
Looks like it's just left of the target, of the bullseye.
Now,
which is
tried and true Easton. All of these do still have the same field tip. All are running the same kind of nocturnal lighted knock. You're talking a couple grains in between the difference. The only variable would be obviously the arrow and the vane configuration.
This one's a 5.0.
Yep. And then the RIP TKO will be the last one with the AAE hybrid. Low left. That could have been me. However,
Let's go take a look.
let's see what happens. Yeah, RIP a little low left, could have been me, but like realistically, you're within like a hand grab of all arrows. So I'm not really seeing necessarily a big difference in flight characteristics. The big one for me so far has been the sound difference. I can definitely hear a difference between our arrows and necessarily the VAPs from Victory. However, I mean, it's not that bad. Let's go back to 40. We'll see what happens at 40. Alright, so now we're at pretty much the long range for a whitetail for here in West Virginia. I think I took my shot last year at mine at 44 yards, but that's because he was on an old logging road. I had plenty of space. I don't think anywhere between mine or John's tree stands do we have a 40-yard shot.
Maybe just a couple angles, yeah.
So most of our yards are going to be from 40 and in. So this is going to be a longer poke. Again, same variation. It's going to be from the VAP to the Ultra to the Easton to the RIP. So far, not a crazy amount of difference. So we'll see what happens with this one. I'm at 40 yards. We'll see what happens.
You could hear it. You could hear its flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next would be the Ultra. Now I will say the VAP looks a little bit low, but that could have been me again. My sight tape isn't built for that light of an arrow, so I am just kind of guessing. However, left to right looks almost perfect. Struggle bus.
That one sounded like some wood.
That sounded like some wood.
However, that is the only 4mm arrow, like we said, so your bow is definitely going to throw that one lower. I bet that arrow survived though.
That was the Ultra.
Yeah, I bet it survived.
He'll probably survive. Alright, Easton 5.0. Easton's in there. And then the RIP. go take a look. So, hit a little low on this one, which is fine. Easton shot the truest at distance. Rips a little low, not too far off, probably about 3 inches. The VAP, not bad. Still the loudest, but not bad. Let's see if we can get the Altra out. Hold on. Air is fine.
Did it survive?
The air survived. The outsert got stuck in.
Okay.
However, new outsert, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So,
I kind of figured that would be the outcome of that one.
Yeah. Ultra air survives.
So let's talk it out on the table.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, so we're back at the table. What does this tell us? My arrow, or my bow, was set up to shoot a version of the RIP TKO. Mine are a little different than the ones that I have set up for. However, that's what my bow is set up for. For what we were shooting, the variation in grain weight, like the lightest being 360 grains and the heaviest being 433 grains, I'm not seeing that big of a difference. None of them penetrated necessarily deeper than the others. None of them had any faults. The only real variation that we saw would be noise, and that's where these come into play. At 20-30 yards, does that decibel count really make that difference? I think necessarily the speed that I'm going to gain would negate that to an extent, because I'm cutting 60 grains off my arrow, which means I'm probably going to shoot them around 320 FPS. At 20-30 yards, is that going to make a difference? Now, if we're out west, we're hunting mule deer, 1000%, because I'm not getting that 20-30 yard shot necessarily. I might have to take a 60 yard shot. However, for what we saw, even the wide variation of arrows and the fletchings and everything else that we necessarily saw, I didn't see a flight characteristic difference that necessarily made me go, alright, I wouldn't shoot that. Now, people are going to be like, well, that doesn't matter. You know, you care more about your arrows than anybody else, which is true. But what I will say is, why this matters to, say, the average hunter. Say you're an average hunter and you get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and you have these arrows, and then you travel with them and something happens and they break. What are you gonna do? You're hoping a pro shop has your vanes, has your arrows, has your spine, or you can go to your local Bass Pro and pick up a set, light a Nox, have at it, and know that your bow is going to be just fine. Or do you create your own arrows and hope and pray everything works out the way you want them to? I think that matters for the average hunter. Now, someone like me and John who tinkers, you've seen my arrow bucket. I have hundreds of arrows. That's not necessarily something that I'm worried about. But for the average individual, this is definitely something to consider when you're going hunting. I have nothing but positive things to say about the arrow that I can pick up from Bass Pro for average whitetail hunting. You guys be the determining factor. You guys have the statistics that we used, and let us know. Now, obviously, this isn't done with the broadhead. This isn't broadhead tuned. All those come into characteristics, but for the average person who's going out shooting, having a good time, I don't necessarily think that if you don't have the time that you're necessarily at a disadvantage for not having custom built arrows. I think you can do just fine with the average person arrow. But you guys be the determining factor. You guys decide. Let us know down in the comments. Let us know down in the comments what else you would like to see testing with these arrows. Like, I have plenty of ultras, I have plenty of Alcets. I could redo the same test hundreds of times. But we're also thinking about adding some fitness things for the average person on our YouTube channel. Leave those down in the comments. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know what kind of workouts or anything like that. Just leave them down in the comments. Back to the arrows. Average person arrow, I think you'll be just fine out in the woods. See y'all in the next one.
Real quick before we edit this one, I think what Cameron is saying is all true, and I think it just goes back to what we've always said, that in case in point on what he just did, it doesn't matter what you shoot, just shoot it and practice with it. It doesn't matter if it's an arrow from Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, or one that, you know, we build. Like, I run the Easton 5.0 match grade, custom vanes, custom wraps, lighted nocks, all that stuff, and I'm good with that because that's what I practice with. Cameron's good with his arrows because that's what he practices with. So I think Cameron's test kind of proved that today. It doesn't matter what arrow you shoot, even as little as this test might have been, as long as you shoot with it and you can tune your bow to that, your arrow's going to be just fine. So good job, Cam. Like Cameron said, we'll see you guys on the next one.